So kicking off FHIR Analytics for 2025. I don't know if you guys saw the post we made. So a couple of us were discussing the past couple of weeks in December, planning for 2025, the different work streams. Some of you guys have seen that, some of you haven't. So I thought what we could do is just kick it off and just review those and get your feedback on, how we were starting to think about the different work streams, a little bit of process and organization, but get your brains working around, some of the specific projects and work streams we were thinking about for 2025, and obviously just open it up to the group. But before we do that, any thoughts or ideas anybody wants to put out at the beginning? Nope. All right.
Is this waiting time, like in 2025?
So the way, I'll get to that, but I think what we are planning on doing, and I'll get into it in a second, is this will continue to be like a coordination meeting time, but the individual work streams where people are actually doing stuff could be in different times, but whatever, we should have a planned agenda for this meeting. So if it's, there's some work stream and, folks have decided who are working on that work stream to use this specific time, we should do that. But mainly this time should just be for coordination. Bashir?
You're muted.
I think you're
audio device selection, not muted.
No, you're still nothing. Did he leave? Okay. Well, let's start up and then just a couple minutes, and then a presentation, and then we can circle back to Bashir. All right. Let's try this out. I tried one of these newfangled AI presentation generators. See how that looks. Right. So FHIR Analytics 2025 kickoff. So like I mentioned, want to iterate and change some of the process around, nothing majorly dramatic or anything like that, but just to make it more effective and use people's times more efficiently. So this weekly meeting works for a lot of people, but it can really be about coordination and sort of brief check-ins. And then, we discussed having these sort of spec development work streams really be grounded by the implementations and implementation work streams and use cases. That's sort of a note to ourselves. It's not really a process or task, but something that we should keep in the forefront of our minds. And then work streams should have leads and have kickoffs and things like that. So not a ton of structure. Obviously, this can vary based on personal preference or the work involved, but sort of some general thoughts about iteration moving forward. So let me stop there. Any thoughts from folks about just process or feedback, ideas, how we can adjust moving forward?
Sorry, do you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. I missed a couple of meetings before the holidays, and I am guessing that you have discussed this before, so sorry about that. So what was the decision on the Parquet schema? I mean, I thought that, maybe we want that as a work stream as well, but I saw that, it's now in the parking section.
Yeah, it's in the parking lot. I think it's only because and everyone else chime in, there's a lot of things to do, right? And it's just priorities for people. I'm not going to put words in people's mouths, but that's my sense. And so, if somebody wanted to take that on and kind of lead it and drive it, then it could completely be a work stream. These aren't set in stone or anything like that. It's just, these are the ones that the folks on the calls thought would be sort of primary, but it could certainly be picked up by somebody else or yourself.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I'll probably need to check with John, maybe offline, and see if
Yeah, I think I'm happy for that to be like a work stream, and I'm happy to lead it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, we've kind of got it to a point, and I feel like we need another meeting about it. So that is what a work stream is, right? So, and I don't really see any problem with it progressing from nowish.
I can definitely contribute, but given the things that I am involved in, inside Google, I won't be able to lead it. So if someone else, like John, who has done a lot of work in this space, can lead it, I can definitely contribute. But
Yeah, I'm happy to lead it, and I'm happy for it to sort of be listed as a work stream.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Yeah, I mean, this isn't prescriptive. This should be adjusted based on, folks' interest and, time of resources available. So, yeah, let's upgrade it in some sense to, a more official work stream. All right. So moving on to the work streams. First, specification maintenance. I'm not going to read off everything. But the idea here is just the small tasks, fixing, maintaining current.
Did you advance your slide, or is it?
It did advance on my screen. Did you not see that?
I still see we had a great 2024, but maybe maybe it's just me.
No, paused.
Yeah, it says you are screen sharing. Desktop capture. Can you see that now?
Yep.
Specification maintenance. All right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So this is the basic nuts and bolts gardening of the specification. I think John has taken on a lot of this work in the past, but he has many work streams on his plate. We don't want John to be on every single work stream. So part of this is to fill in and lead some of these projects. So I think this is pretty self-explanatory. So workstream number 2, core spec development for sort of a milestone 2, the API side of things. Dan and Nikolai have offered to lead this one. We've touched upon some of the ideas around this, the past couple of months about roles, different kinds of roles, export API, sort of related to thinking around the bulk API. And so this one seems really set up for discussion. So I think this one's also pretty self-explanatory. So picking a few APIs and setting up dates so that the interested parties can meet and discuss. So any questions about this one? The idea here would be that there's a FHIR resource or an artifact that encapsulates SQL queries, handles dialects potentially. And, this could be something that this is sort of the way I think about it is, sort of an atomic foundational kind of unit that is used in other types of artifacts packaged and bundled, which we'll talk about later. But, and then the idea is to have these in mind when we're building specifications, during the implementation work streams and that sort of use case driven. So there is currently no specific person leading this.
One question about that.
Yep.
So when we say like artifact for ANSI SQL queries and dialects, is in some sense we are assuming a schema. Isn't that true? Or are we just saying that SQL queries on JSON? Is that the goal here?
I mean, other folks can chime in of how.
Yeah, I can tell. So I think it could be a very simple resource where the body just a SQL query. So it's kind of straightforward.
Any reason not
Sorry,
to
say
use
that
the expression data type? If we're just putting the SQL query, would we want to use like the expression? There's a metadata type called expression where you can put language and the expression and
Yeah, we probably can like leverage expression data type. It will probably have a link to the ViewDefinition, maybe set of ViewDefinition, which operates on and the expression data type. So
Okay.
the main question is it gonna be like useful and like what about dialects and so on?
Sir, I might be misunderstanding this. So are we just trying to define like a query resource, which is just holds the text of the query? Is that
Yeah,
what you're trying to do?
Yeah. Just to package it for distribution. So you can distribute query in machine readable format with the view definitions. Let's say it be.
Is it useful without knowing the schema?
It will use the schema, yes. So it will reference the view definitions as a schema.
But I mean, I see what you mean. Okay. This is
The resource
view
kind of
definitions.
simple. Yeah, it has a set of view definition it's operate on.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then so the question probably like what should be table names or stuff like this. Yeah, can we use like name for that? And the main question is it really like interoperable? But what I think that after view definition, like ANSI SQL could be quite interoperable.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, maybe it's also useful to have, I don't know, a proposal or a way describing that this flat, the flat view, that's how it's being translated into the schema, at least as a proposal. And then, so like, I mean, this is, a column with this type would be a column of this type in SQL. And then in that sense,
That's maybe a good idea, yeah, because in but we have a place in ViewDefinition to do that as well.
yes.
Right, yes, which
Yeah.
could live in ViewDefinition resource.
Right, but the place that we have is just like a suggestion. So it's basically the person who is creating the view definition says that, I suggest that, you convert this to this type.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that it's probably, we can come up with a proposal or something that says, this is the canonical way that you, at least for the primitive data types, you transform like a view definition to a schema. And then SQL queries make sense on this schema. Something.
Yeah, I would definitely want to participate, maybe even lead. So because we have stuff like this. So in 8box we have even parameterized queries, but not sure. So let's discuss in a group. So should we introduce parameters for that? Because sometimes it's useful. So you sometimes you don't need everything. So and you want inject some parameters. So I think there's official ANSI parameter stuff, but maybe some extra elements which will describe what the type of parameters and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
I can sketch the first draft and then we will start from it. And I really would love to see the Brian and the CRMI team will look at it, because I would love to unify it if it's possible. Because I see some intersection with the CRMI stuff. So because we're going to manage the canonical resource, and I think Brian, if you have some ideas, so maybe we can leverage the CRMI as well. We don't have a lot of dependency. We don't need all this stuff from CRMI, but basic CRUD search, I think you defined it, yes. And maybe some operation evaluation of the view definition and stuff like this.
Is that workstream too?
Yeah, it is workstream about API and roles. So how we're going to manage view definition and runtime. So the general idea, just provide FHIR API, CRUD, and search. So what I think that view definition will eventually be part of CRMI.
Yep.
Maybe not everybody aware about CRMI. Maybe you can make some intro for this project quickly.
It's an IG that's going to ballot or is in ballot. Canonical resource management infrastructure, which is a mouthful, but basically we're trying to consolidate all of these profiles around what it means for knowledge artifacts to be shareable, computable, executable. Knowledge artifacts include things such as value sets, plan definitions, libraries, measures, things that artifacts that you typically create kind of outside patient context. And structure definitions are among them. So any of these IGs would fall under CRMI kind of guidance on how you package them up, how you version them, distribute them, how you resolve dependencies. Geno's a part of it too. View definitions are certainly a kind of knowledge artifact.
So guys, please contribute. So if you can. So.
Yeah, certainly. We were talking about the query resource, but it's related for certainly. I know there's some interest around this as well, but so Nikolai put himself on the hook for first draft for a simple query resource. And there's some other aspects that we haven't talked about, but this obviously brings in the idea of a little bit.
This is what we were just talking about, Nikolai. So maybe it's this work stream.
Yeah, there's this kind of an overlap here. So we call this one authoring and publishing, Brian. So authoring, the definition of fish is a little out of order, I guess you'd say. And then, right, the publishing side, packaging, bundling, and IG integration. So I think Nikolai was talking about the APIs more specifically, but this, to me, don't know a ton about
I
CRMI.
think this is like more IG aftering side, yes. So if you want to put like view definition as a part of CRMI is more dynamic stuff and more close to API, but probably I don't know.
These are related for sure.
Yeah, but do you have any integration with IG Publisher and CRMI?
Not explicitly, but we do follow a lot of the conventions and patterns, such as some of the extensions in the implementation guide resource for identifying the package ID, the package scope, IG Publisher and FHIR Sushi, but it's not tightly coupled. Like you could develop that content outside of those tools. But I think and FHIR packages is part of it as well, which does get definitely into the distribution side.
Yeah, but for this like track 4, I think it is very important to give the people the tools to make view definition part of ID.
Yeah, we could do that, but you can imagine someone might want to write the actual FHIR shorthand might not be the best way to actually write the view definition. Like people might have a different way to prefer to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We could do it that way. I mean, we kind of did it in the SQL and FHIR IG.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of it like CQL. Like CQL, if you have a .CQL file, there's all these plugins and things you can get in VS Code that give that kind of a first-class editing experience, and maybe you'd want that.
Yeah, that is because we even have like visual builders, yes, and real-time runners. That's a good idea. But finally, they I don't know, put them as a JSON into the IG and publish.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you just need to make a FHIR package, whether or not you use IG Publisher or not. That we could provide some guidance on how to do that if that's what this work stream is about.
But another substream of this, what we discussed, that maybe having special pages in IG which shows you view definitions and I don't know, you can jump to resource probably somewhere else.
Yeah, I think this would probably need a fair bit of experimentation to see what's useful, because you probably want the equivalent of a store behind it. And then you need to figure out like, oh, are we putting 50, 100 resources in the IG so that we have some sort of store that we can look at, and some of those kinds of things to figure out what gives it a package, or whether it makes sense to do that separately. Something more executable that's on GitHub or something like that.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Or interact.
Yeah. So you don't think that like putting view definition as a part of IG is a good idea?
I think it can be, but I think it's also going to want more than that. I don't know that the IG Publisher, the output is pretty static, intentionally so because of the way the publication works. And so when we start saying, if you want to have, for instance, the interactive use of the view definition or some things like that, that we might say, that's great that you want to publish the view definition, but we want you to have somewhere where you can actually see what it's doing and evaluate it and all those different things. We might want some additional tooling outside of that probably shouldn't live on build.fhir.org and probably shouldn't live in IG Publisher, because
So the way that we've done some of that with specific kinds of content IGs, like when we do a clinical guideline or a quality measure, is we create custom IG Publisher templates that include like React components and stuff. And so at the end of the day, as long as you can run it in your web browser, you can at least do some of that interactivity. I'm not sure exactly the nature of what you're talking about, but I could imagine creating like a special IG Publisher template that people could just configure. It's one line to configure which template you want to use, and then you could maybe get some of that out of the existing tooling.
Yeah, it's a big fork in the road, though, because you can't publish official things using those templates.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling that just like our guidelines and quality measures, they don't go through HL7 like blessings. They're kind of just, they conform to IG stuff that HL7 does have, but many times these are like,
community projects and things like that. Yeah,
and I think view definitions might fall into that category.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I mean, if you're going to publish an IG that has view definitions, then you have to use as part of the balloting process.
Yeah, and that's where I was saying that we probably want to experiment and see what parts of it make sense to push into. Yes, I want a HL7 validated publication that has to use the stock template and can't have that interactivity, and what can be a community project or other things hosted separately so that we can have that interactivity, because I think
And maybe there's things you can do in the narrative to bridge that a little bit. I don't know.
yeah, links out to sites, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So just so people know, like there is already a level of view definition support in the IG publisher. So in the IG publisher, there's this sort of SQLite database that gets tables created in it during the publication process. And what Graham has added so far, as my understanding, is that if you have view definition resource within the publication process, it will not only sort of validate that view definition resource using specific SQL and FHIR validation logic, but it will also register that view as a table in the SQL and FHIR database, and it will run that view over the resources in the IG and populate that table with the result. And furthermore, there's a SQL capability in the publisher where you can sort of define the output of a SQL query in a page based on a table in the SQLite database. So you can already sort of put view definitions in. I believe there's a view definition specific rendering. I was just trying to dig it up. It's in Zulip somewhere.
Good chat.
And you can also use it to create sort of SQL powered publishing in the IG publisher. So that's really cool. And I think that's like already a big chunk of what we were sort of envisioning for this.
I feel like that has a good use case if you're an IG developer, but I was assuming there was a use case where you want to distribute these view definitions like as first class things because you have use cases of people that are directly using the view definition. So it's less of a utility to help make the IG easier to manage and more of like, this is literally what I wanted to. So maybe there's a couple of use cases of how this integration works.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's definitely a bit of exploration here, and definitely some structuring here. This seems like the most sort of wide and at least kind of focused one as well. So I think we touched upon a number of issues and use cases, but as a good starting point. But again, this is the one that I think needs the most love in some sense to structure a work stream around. So moving forward, work stream 5, this is the implementation work stream of the idea of using SQL and FHIR view definitions or a FHIR to OMOP translation. Both John has been doing some work in this area and Nikolai as well. So they've raised their hands.
Arjun, I don't think your AI slide deck is advancing again.
No, this is the worst. AI is a fraud, as we have discovered.
I have kind of slide deck where I push the right arrow and then it goes to the next slide.
I see it moving forward, but let's try one more hack and then just give up at this point. Let's see here. I'm gonna do.
You mean the AI doesn't predict when you want to advance?
Arjun, your video is frozen, so I don't know. So it's probably something wrong, not with slide deck.
Can you guys see that now? No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing. Oh, you can. Okay. I don't know if you guys see in your faces too, but
yeah, we
you
do. So hide mine, please.
All right. We'll do this.
Yeah, for this track, so I have a good news. So we found the customer who already did mapping using SQL, and we're discussing with them that we can try to port it to SQL and FHIR to the mix, like view definitions and then SQL transformations. So, and I hope I will be able to contribute a lot to this FHIR to OMOP stuff.
Great, that's awesome. And then we have John's work in this space. So this one seems pretty well set. I forget the conversation around synthetic data here, but and then the mimic work in John's paper as well. So this one seems in good shape, and with John and Nikolai with this one. And there's a wide interest in this too. So as we get more organized here, hopefully we'll get more folks involved, not just the core group here. That moving forward, targeted US core use cases. So we had some discussions around this as well. Certainly specific use cases or projects from people targeting US core. This is sort of the bucket for them. But also the idea of looking at data quality, digital quality. Obviously, there's clinical aspects here using US core, and just I see the output here as potentially like demos or proof of concepts, specifically around US core use cases. So this one doesn't have anybody sort of leading it. It's pretty widespread, but this seems like a useful work stream.
So is this just examples like that use US core profiles? Is that what this means?
Essentially, yeah, Brian. All right. So no questions there. John's done a bunch of work here as well. Just crystallizing that a little bit, and internally, and then going outside and seeing if we fit under the FHIR community process or the FHIR Foundation. So I won't bore everybody with all that, but I think this will just continue until we have a more formalized governance structure. Not planning to be super formal, but just something that we agree with in consensus form and is documented, and we have it, and then can become something where there's a little bit more governance behind this group, such that we can move forward in terms of the next work stream, which is marketing and in funding work done by this organization for implementation, sponsorships, and things like that. There needs to be some governance sitting behind this group, and so that's the foundational layer for this part.
So Arjun, back on the last one.
Yep.
Are we does this also include, like, for each of the work streams, we have a cadence of like updating the spec, and there's targeted like deliverables? Does that all happen in this work stream 7?
No, I would say that would be like work stream 1. If you're specifically talking about the spec as an artifact and its evolution and maturity, that would be like work stream 1. These are the governance aspects of the group, like how's decisions made? Do we have documented procedures and processes, etc. That's the split I see there. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah. So the project management is kind of work stream 1
for the specification itself.
If we jump to the next slide, so that's probably like a little bit more. So we discussed with Graham that like FHIR Foundation are not yet like, how to say, shaped idea. Yes. And it would be nice if we can have like grants in FHIR Foundation, which can be used for the working group. For example, I don't know, to have Arjun driving all this stuff, I don't know, for some marketing conferences.
Yeah. So the marketing, the conferences and sort of that marketing aspect sits under this. And we would like to be in a position where an organization could sponsor, right? This is the point. This work stream is sort of bundling marketing and that kind of thing together. But ultimately, we need that foundation first. So that's the governance aspect. And then once that's, I think, in a little more solid place, then we could potentially reach out to interested parties for things like sponsorships, sponsoring conferences, sponsoring the supporting the expenses that we.
And Arjun, are you going to talk about this with Graham? And we could be the first company who will sponsor.
Yeah. We'll kick both of these off in the next few weeks, and really just not kick them off, just restart the process we were doing in Q4. Any questions or comments, thoughts about 7 and 8? Yeah, I think this Connectathon kind of always flies under the radar because it's in January. I don't know how much we get out of it, to be honest. When was we did last January, I remember as well, but it was very ad hoc. we get a lot more value, I think, out of dev days, in-person events. But under this umbrella, the marketing umbrella, certainly are things like the conference we did in October, which I think went off really well. People put in a ton of work, a lot of people on this call. But I would love to see us do that or reuse those artifacts at targeted opportunities where folks outside of the HL7 community, outside of our group or the adjacent group, where they are in a place where they're thinking about new things. So, I'd love to see us have more of these shorter virtual mini conferences or presentations throughout the year. And then, of course, there's, more major events like Dev Days, for instance, or the, working group meetings in the summer. But then there's industry events like HIMSS, Vibe Health.
Yeah, I mean that we can try to build this schedule, yes, and then like ahead, maybe for the half year, and then decide what we're gonna do on these events. For example, I will have a talk on Europe working group meeting because it's gonna happen in Lisbon in February. So I will have like short presentation about SQL on FHIR and analytics on FHIR. As I know, the like summer Connectathon is gonna be in Madrid in Europe. And the Dev Days in Amsterdam, yes. So it's Europe, year in Europe.
Yes, everyone's going to go to Europe this year. I spoke to Reen actually this week, and he reminded me that the call for papers or presentations for Dev Days is the end of this month, is the deadline. So we'll have to kick this part off relatively soon. But yeah, we should have a shared, a calendar. Where we
maybe
track
share a calendar and discuss who will do the talks and where and what topics. Yes, we probably may have again the like separate stream in Dev Days. Maybe discuss it with Reem, like maybe like we did in the last 2 days.
Yep, certainly. That's what I'm thinking here.
So for Workstream 8, is it that you're pitching something kind of between the current foundation and the accelerator programs? Like an accelerator light, that you don't want to be a full accelerator with all that entails, but you want to have some of those things from HL7, some of those types of services?
We're thinking about FHIR Foundation, not HL7 accelerator, but I don't know.
Oh, I was just saying how the accelerators, like a lot of the services that HL7 actually does for the accelerators, are the financial management and all of those types of things, so that people can donate to Argonaut project and pay their membership dues and all that kind of stuff through HL7 instead of Argonaut setting up all that business side.
I saw this announce. So can you elaborate? So it's already working. So there was some announce of HL7 accelerator.
There's a bunch of accelerators. I'm sorry.
It was like announced by HL7, like HL7. I forgot the name, but
for FHIR Analytics, Nikolai, or specifically, or just
no, it was just announced that like maybe a few months ago that HL7 is starting some kind of accelerator.
There's new ones that come up periodically. The accelerator program is what, like Argonaut, DaVinci, Helios, all of those different groups are accelerators.
Are they mostly driven by US? Yes, and not by 7. No, it's HL7. Oh,
no. Yeah, even Argonaut, we're trying to fix the image, and we realize that we steward US core, but almost everything we do is UV. That we do smart, we do bulk, we do all these different things that are all UV. So even Argonaut itself, we're like, no, we're not US focused at all, except for the one project.
Very interesting. Maybe Arjun, you should discuss it with.
Yeah, but the accelerator program in general is just for that type of thing that you say, yeah, we have an organization and we're kind of operating under the auspices of HL7, and they handle all the accounting and different services like that you need, so you don't need to register your own nonprofit and all that kind of stuff. So,
what is UV? So, John asked.
UV is Universal Realm. Sorry. So like smart or bulk data or things like that aren't US, aren't a specific country. They're UV. They're for everybody.
I think we are UV. Yes, like SQL on Fire is.
Yeah,
is
package
should
ID, we put UV in it.
Yep.
So I guess to your question, is there a way to have all of those benefits, but not have all the responsibilities?
Probably not today, but that's where I was saying that when talking through the idea, I think what it's kind of saying is do a stepping stone. Like that's how I would personally pitch it, is saying like, oh, have the FHIR Foundation offer kind of accelerator light, that we're not a full accelerator, but kind of on that pathway of things that services you need from HL7 and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what all it entails exactly. That's above my pay grade, but.
So I'm trying to figure out. I mean, there's, I think, a couple of different options. I see where you're going with that, considering that like this isn't, it's a very small. I don't think Graham would disagree, but like it's pretty immature, right? And so we would be in some way breaking some new ground here, even if we were not, even if we didn't, think about ambitions that are really big. So this is going to be a pretty iterative process, working with Graham and the FHIR Foundation folks. I think we're going to start small and really incremental here. This is kind of my bottom line with that. See if we can.
Let's learn from the experience.
To get money to fund your time, Arjun, and to fund time to build tools. Is that what the money's used for?
Yeah, probably like Zoom meetings. I don't know, some artifacts, domain name, stuff like this.
Have a neutral non-vendor place for intellectual property, for instance, Brian. If somebody were to, let's say today, want to write a check so that some part of SQL and FHIR can be worked on, or maintenance or whatever, there's no place for that check to go, right? There's no organization that could even accept any kind of sponsorship of this. So to me, that's the first step. Just building that governance structure so that we could accept sponsorship at this point. And then beyond that, incrementally, maybe it could expand. So we're trying to figure out how we can build that core in a pretty simple way. I don't think we need a ton of overhead.
Yeah, and I think that's
we discussed it, Gina, that we need this for the FHIR core as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and a lot of those things are the same types of things I know, because it's the annual takeover, like in Argonaut. So we've just been doing our budgeting meetings, and then we're working on our project selections for the year and all that kind of stuff. And this feels functioning very similar to an accelerator in what everybody wants. That it's like, yeah, we don't want to be bogged down in the HL7 process or any of those things, but we do want HL7 outputs. And we also want to be under that umbrella for things like funding and being able to allocate work and all those kinds of things. So to have in the back of your mind, they might position it that way as well.
Yeah, I think this is I would say an open discussion, but like I think we should, and I think John made this point earlier, before. It was, let's try and understand what we are looking for, what our needs are, and then go out and speak to people and see how current structures potentially could fit with what we are specifically looking for in our project, in our group. And then if none of them really satisfy or they're not mature enough, how can we help them become more mature or adjust them moving forward? But, understanding how we would like our organization group to function, I think is pretty important as a starting point. And that's sort of that's one of the aspects of the governance part as well. Kind of think internally, understand what the principles we want to operate under. And Brian, did I answer your question? I'm sorry, I can't see anybody's face. So your earlier question
about
Brian already forgot.
I was just thinking of what name the group. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I looked at the accelerator webpage and my brain started thinking about what would the name of the group be.
It needs like a Greek god.
No, I was thinking like, I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't remember. I think my question was just about what the funding is for, and you answered it for sure.
Okay, yeah, just that. I just want to make sure I didn't skip answering your question. Prometheus. All right, and that's the end of the story. Except, well, the parking lot. So I think we already talked about data layer and Parquet. Let's just upgrade that to, a work stream. And then the one I know people very interested in, but we didn't really have a place to land it, was value sets and terminology. This obviously has a lot of relationships with other groups, so we just put it in the parking lot for now, just to remember it. And that is the end of the story. Any comments or thoughts around the parking lot items?
So I guess, we've got about 5 minutes left. I guess the where to from here. So we've got all these awesome themes. Now I feel like we want to sort of schedule in chats about them, sort of at a frequency which isn't going to overwhelm people, but gives us a nice little schedule over the sort of short to medium term of actually being able to progress these things. Have you got some ideas about how that's going to be done, Arjun?
I mean, really simply, I think I'll throw up a Google Sheet with a schedule and start putting in placeholder agenda items for our weekly call. We know it's and then just a really simple spreadsheet with dates of our weekly meeting, primary, maybe secondary agenda item, and who is driving those. So that's what I see, just documenting, an agenda shared around on Zulip, have folks leading each work stream, adjusted or put in specific agenda items, and then follow up on Zulip. So that's my thought for next steps and structure for where to.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Right.
well, let's keep everything transparent through Zulip. Yes, this is like central place.
Awesome. Yeah, and you guys, let me know in terms of process or any adjustments. Obviously, I'm helping organize this part, but totally open to working with folks or any feedback or suggestions.
So, Arjun, can you remind me where do we keep track of the open tickets or things that people are working on? Is that GitHub projects?
Yes. Yeah, it's all on GitHub.
That was for specification. I think for some work streams, we will create separate projects. Like as we discussed, TomOp and Parquet will probably leave not as a part of main specification.
Right. Yeah, I think we have a couple under our repo. So if that works for folks, obviously it's pretty standard. We can just continue with that, even for non-code tests.
Couple of minutes, maybe the new people can introduce themselves for the group. We have Fatima, guys. Hi.
Hi everyone. My name is I have been trained as a pharmacist by profession. But I was mostly working on measure development, quality measures. So I am mostly familiar with the SQL, building measures using SQL. But I got introduced to FHIR during that measure development process. And the way I used to develop measures was pretty much outdated, the QDM models. And I've seen FHIR format of measure development. So I got interested in that learning FHIR. So I took a fundamentals course. And now I want to get some hands-on work into contribute to FHIR community and learn more about it. Mm-hmm. Do some real-world projects.
Yeah, welcome, Arpita.
Yeah, and my interest basically will be more on IG publishing and data quality, and wherever measure development can be attached to. I'm also familiar with value sets and terminology part of things, but I'm completely new to SQL and FHIR. So yeah, I would love to learn more of that. That's about me.
Thank you. Welcome to the team. Other guys, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Jada Batten. I am a product manager actually at Greenway. And I too work with a regulatory reporting agency. So I work with programs like MIPS and but I am also pursuing my master's in health informatics, and I have a really strong interest in creating clinical decision support systems, reproductive health. And I do have SQL experience. I am more experienced in SQL than that of FHIR, but I do have some FHIR experience. But I'm here to learn and contribute and to advance the field.
Yeah. Raga?
I think I can go. My name is Fatima. I'm from One Up Health. I've been to a couple of these in the past, but I'm mainly like a silent observer. I've met some of you at Dev Days in Minnesota this past year. But I'm a data engineer at One Up Health. I'm on the team that develops our SQL on FHIR product, and I also work a lot with like data quality measures internally to the company and how we can sort of either use SQL on FHIR for data quality or advanced data quality in the FHIR space. So I just think this is a great community to kind of learn from all of you and see how like analytics in the FHIR and health tech workspace is like advancing.
Yeah, awesome. Fatima, you should pass our test and be on a list of implementation if you implemented SQL on FHIR.
Yeah, would love to be involved in that if possible.
Okay. Welcome. And Raga, you have a chance to introduce yourself? Okay, so then we...
All right. Well, next time, Raga, then. Okay, we're a couple minutes over time. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. I'm super excited for 2025. I think we had a great year last year, but just onward and upwards. So thanks again, everybody, and all the contributions.
Happy New Year. Bye.
All right.